Okay, so long day. I'm a little bit tired, but I committed to doing these videos every single day, and the feedback has been nothing short of amazing. I love everything you guys have been saying, and I really appreciate all the emails and the comments and the likes and all that stuff you've been doing below. At some point, I'll be answering every single one of you, but it just takes me some time to get to the comments. I've been doing a lot. And today I want to talk about something. So I just finished reviewing literally like hundreds of, we do this thing where we have this video of somebody who is playing in a hand, and then you have a bunch of, I say, you know, tell me what you think that they have. It's something I do for Beyond Tells. And I just went through, I think, like 200 or 300. And I want to address something, and that's called, I think he does this with X, Y, and Z, right? And this is a language that has been created primarily, in my belief, online community. If you watch some of the online videos, you know, see players talk about hands and they'll say like, you know, he never does this with X, Y, or Z, or, you know, I never see him doing this with a set or whatever. And it's basically when you're talking about the line a player takes, you're saying you never think they would do that specific action with this specific range of hands. And it's a great way to think about poker, and it's how you should be thinking about poker. But a lot of people seem to really get this wrong. And the reason why they get this wrong is, you know, I show somebody one clip of a player, and they've got this like incredible level of insight into what's going on. So like he never does this with with like very specific things. Like he never does this with jacks plus or ace queen or better. Like you have no idea. You just sat down with the player. And a lot of this, understand this, like when the online players were referring to these games, like this player never does this with X, Y, or Z, they're often referring to a HUD. They often have significant history with somebody. They often, you know this player's tendencies, know these players' patterns, and know what are the general trends or themes for that specific stake or that specific level. So like you would see that people are regular at 5-10 on full tilt would very rarely do this with this subset of hands, and it would make sense. But those reads are grounded in information. It is very difficult to watch somebody just, you know, play a single hand and say he never does that with X, Y, or Z. Damn, my phone. 1 second. Sorry, so where was I? Yeah, if you don't have any specific information on these players, you can't make such subtle reads. And in reviewing some of these comments, I was seeing that people were saying what they wouldn't do in that spot, not what their opponent wouldn't do in that spot. So like let's say you're playing with someone, a super tight player, never gets out of line, plays pretty straightforward poker. You raise an early position with like ace, let's say ace queen or something like that, and then this player calls you, which is really weird. He never calls. He's always either raising or folding. The player calls you, you know, board comes like 3, 5, 7, right? And you bet pot, and this player re-raises you to like, I don't know, so you bet 25, this player re-raises you to 80. And you sit there and you look at that board and you say to yourself, I don't think this player would ever do that. I don't think this player would have ever flatted with aces or kings pre-flop, and I highly doubt they're doing this with any sort of bluff. It sounds crazy, and I know it's rare, but they might have a set. That's like a decent line or a decent level of logic to have there, because you have some experience with this player, and this player is super nitty. This player probably only would do that with a very good quality hand, and you don't see how aces or kings or queens fits into his pre-flop action. Therefore, you think that he has some sort of set, right? And you might be wrong, but as long as you're right more times than you're wrong, okay. So like that makes sense. But just looking at a player and saying like he never does this with X or Y or Z, like where are you getting that read from? Like I still don't get that. Like it takes some time. I mean, it takes a couple of hands for you to solidify what that is. And yeah, I just found it really interesting that like so many people were having these dead on reads about what they thought their player's range was, there was no information to suggest that. And what's scary is some of them were dead right, but for the wrong reasons. It's something that I don't know if you guys do this or don't do it, but it's something that, I mean, it's something that you should be doing, but you should be doing correctly. So like the way you modify it is, I think that he only does this with X, Y, and Z because of, and then you give an answer. So like I think he only raises in this spot with, you know, a small pair because of the past experiences, or whatever. If it's not grounded in any sort of actual material, it's usually not good. I mean, it's still the biggest problem, right? Players leveling themselves. I think it'll always be the biggest problem. A player learns all this stuff about poker and can calculate ranges and equity in a pot and blah, 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 and they think the people around them can do that. Well, the guy's just like this. The guy's just like, oh, an ace and a 10, let me play. Like, that's a lot of players' thought process at 1-2. Like, and then you're like, he never does this with X, Y, and Z, when in reality the guy is like, all right, I'll play because it's an ace. An ace is good, and hopefully the flop will hit, come an ace, and I'll get lucky. I mean, I just see people outsmart themselves all the time. And I just saw, like, literally hundreds of people outsmart themselves at scale. So it's not just one person. It's like tons of people making these crazy reads. And you know what's interesting about this? I feel like sometimes pretty decent and pretty quality players who aren't doing that process feel inferior, right? So they're like, oh, why don't I think like that? But in reality, that's okay, because the people that are thinking like that, the thinking's great, but it's not applied in the right spot. And listen, you don't need to have this massively complicated thought process to play decent poker at 1-2 or 2-5. I mean, you don't even at 5-10, higher stakes, it doesn't even matter. Like, you need to be thinking along the right lines. You need to not outsmart yourself, which is something that kind of language has you do. So the only thing I challenge you is when you say, I think a player does this with X, Y, and Z, or they never do that with X, Y, and Z, please have a because that's grounded in some sort of past information or some sort of information that's available to you in the moment. And it could be tells or it could be behavior, and that's fine too. But just don't make these assumptions without having some sort of time with players, okay? I hope that makes sense. Sorry if I'm a little bit lower energy today. Like I said, really long day. My voice is starting to go. And I still got like another 3 or 4 hours to put in. And it's like, I don't know, like 11:30 or 11:45. But always grinding, whether it's at the table or whether it's with companies and businesses and products and customers and all that. Yeah, any questions about this, any comments, please let me know below. Or maybe you could just comment below and describe one of these thought processes that you had. Like, what does your because of X, Y, and Z actually look like? Thanks for watching.